guys. Just let everybody get in here. Hi, Viviana's husband.
How you doing? I'm trying to help her here with her blurred background.
I see that. Well, Lindsay, welcome.
Thank you.
Lindsay just decided to join this week, so she's a week behind, but she's gonna get caught up soon. It'll be easy peasy. Okay. We can get started here. As always, recording, so we'll send that out after this meeting, but Kate's on her way. How are you guys? How's the first week been? Oops, one more. Any questions, comments, concerns, smart remarks? I have no hesitation to call you out by name, so if anybody has anything that they want to start with.
I'll go. I
Yeah.
put in my notice for my current part-time PT job to resign in 3 weeks.
What?
Fully committed, which is scary.
Yeah, which you kind of talked about last week that you were going to do that, but did this happen in the timeline that you were thinking? Or
A little bit faster than what I was thinking. Basically with the starting my own practice, I was like getting a lot of referrals like from my gym to go to my clinic, which was like getting a little bit chaotic, and I kind of wanted to capitalize on the momentum that was happening. So I was like, all right, we'll just like go ahead and start going towards the gym. So
that's awesome.
crazy.
Cool. Yeah. Yay.
Yeah,
So
thanks.
3 weeks, is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm only there part-time. I teach full-time, so it's my part-time PT job, which has made the transition a little bit easier too, because I'm not like, taking like a major leap with a full-time situation, at least not right now. So I think
Okay.
it'll be.
How did they take it? How'd they take the news?
They were good. I basically just blamed my current full-time job, which was also accurate. So I haven't like told them that I'm starting my own practice yet. So I don't know how that would go.
Okay. Fair enough.
They'll find out soon.
So exciting. Congrats.
Thanks.
Hey, Lindsay, will you just quickly let the group know who you are, where you are, what your goals are? And just, that's kind of what we did last week. So give us the scoop on you.
Okay, I did get to watch the video. That's one thing I got to do, watch the video from last week.
Good.
So I'm Lindsay Carver. I am in Charlotte, North Carolina. I'm currently practicing in a hospital, so doing acute care with adults. And prior to that, I was doing mostly peds up in New York City. And when we moved, I took this hospital job thinking it would just be a temporary to get into the children's hospital because that's my passion, and I'm still with the adults. And I've been very burnt out. What made me kind of look at doing something different is I actually was looking at leaving PT because I'm so burnt out. I have a really horrible leader at the hospital right now. We're all pretty miserable, and I just said, I'm over it. I'm done. I don't know what else I would want to do. And I just kind of, I don't know, the last couple of weeks, I just had to really dig in deep and go, well, why did you go to PT school? What did you love about it? You were very passionate about it at one point. And I said, well, duh, I love working with kids. That's my heart and passion, and I just have to get back to it, but I need to do it on my terms. So, because I did some peds here too, and I stopped. I had a baby 18 months ago, and so I stopped that to just be at home more. And they told me you can come back anytime. My boss actually reached out a couple weeks ago. We're ready for you whenever you're ready. And I just don't want that. I want to do my thing. So, looking at doing kind of in-home, cash based. I mean, this is literally brand new. I've done nothing except in the last 2 weeks decided that this is what I'm going to do. And I found out about this. I started talking with a couple colleagues at work who are kind of on the same track of doing their own thing. And one of my colleagues had taken this course through ICE
Okay.
not too long ago.
Okay, well, good. I think this will be a fun group because it's our kind of pilot group under Full Draw. So it's a smaller group, which I think will be good. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for the intro. Hi, Kate. Sorry about Zoom. Okay, any more things off the top of your head? Otherwise, we've got some questions we want to start talking about. Anything pop up in the homework that you weren't expecting? Like somebody wrote that these questions were really hard to answer. Like it was taking you to a place of a lot of self-reflection. Who wrote that? Was that you, Helen? Yeah, I think it was you, Yori.
Yeah, it was me. I feel like it's like so hard to put all of those things into words. Like I feel like it's all things that I've like thought about, but being able to actually like write it or like articulate it well was much more, I think, challenging than I was expecting. And my sister is in like a business development type of role, but with like architecture. And so she actually had been like asking me some of these questions previously. And I was like, I'll think about that later. Like I'll figure it out. And then you guys had the same questions. So I was like, oh, all right, this is now. But I thought they were like a little bit harder to answer than I actually was anticipating.
Like what in particular was tricky for you?
I think that for me it was like the mission statement. I think I'm trying to go to it, the mission statement and the values, being able to kind of like talk about like why we're actually doing what we're doing. And I think like you said in your email for today, like our mission statement versus like what we're trying to do with the patient. I think that I had a hard time trying to figure out how to write that out.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, so let's kind of take it from there. So we wanted to talk about like why, and you guys wrote this in your homework, but let's talk as a group. Why are you starting a business? Like what is motivating you to leave, maybe not the profession, but leave where you're working and start your own practice? And then let's start there. So Lindsay, like you said, basically in your introduction, that you're wanting to do it on your own terms. So what does that look like for you?
I think that looks like kind of obviously scheduling wise, like me getting to pick which days I want to work, but also just really doing it. So my thought is where I'm leading towards now is really looking at new moms, new babies, and doing a lot of education and kind of preventative. And so that kind of being on my terms versus like the home care that I was previously doing and the outpatient clinic, it was very much so based on kind of insurance. You know, so much of the things that you do are insurance driven and paperwork and tons of paperwork. And I just rather be able to, you know, if I want to do this with a kid, if I want to educate this way, like be able to do it how I want to. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, so you want less paperwork,
Mm-hmm.
more specific patient population,
Yes.
right? And then like schedule flexibility. Those are kind of big ones for you.
Yes.
Who else?
There we go.
David, did you raise your hand? Oh, I like that etiquette.
I figured out how to do that like 3 days ago, so I figured I'd use it.
Okay, I like it.
I've not Zoomed a whole lot this last year, thankfully. I mean, for the questions and stuff, it's like all this reflective process. For both me and my wife, like it starts to get back to like, what do we all want? Like time, money, freedom. That's what you're trying to sell us. And like, this is the thing, you start to want the Corvette, and you see a Corvette everywhere. Like, what do I want? I want to own my own business and practice PT and do it the way I want. So I'm constantly seeing, because my news feeds are people doing these things. And how do I get it? How do I get it? And I actually it is the thing I want, which is me potentially working less, enjoying my job more, and making enough money to do the thing. Right. And I think Kate's feedback on my homework was I said something about the constraints of insurance. Cause you get into practice and you just start to feel like even what you learned while what you learned in school was probably outdated or not amazingly useful, you have to bill in a certain way, and there's certain expectations with just being in our giant system, and also having to listen to physicians and just deal with a lot of the extraneous stuff that is working with people. It was I think Helen was saying it, you don't always know how to put this stuff into words. It's feelings, and me being pissed off about somebody coming in with low back pain and them fearing for their freaking life, when if you just got them doing a few simple things, and you do those things, and then they feel better, and they're still going to go back to their doctor and maybe still be scared shitless. So I think it's just getting outside of the constraints of kind of our traditional model. And I think where I'm going with this is we all got into this because we want to help people, but we don't want to sacrifice who the hell we are to do it. And so I'm just tired of the bullshit of people not really paying for their care per se. They're paying for it, but they're kind of not. And you talked about this in your podcast. Some people are happy to use their insurance, but for me, and this is us too, this is everybody, when we pay for something, we're going to make freaking sure that we use it. I mean, $650 for a class that's probably super useful is not that expensive. And I applaud you and Kate for putting on something awesome. There should be no reason for me not to want to pay you guys to help me do this. But I still am freaking gut wrenched because I'm $30,000 in debt and I want to get out of that debt. So where the hell am I going with this rant? Time, money, freedom. I want to freaking do what I know I can do and help people the way I know I can help them. And this is part of that process. So sorry, that was long. That's how I usually am.
That's what you guys are doing right now. It's good.
And that was good. And I think that's what we want to hear right now. You pointed out why you're doing this for yourself. And I think we all need to start there because we're PTs, we want to help people, and we start talking about I want to provide quality care and I want to treat people differently. But I think we also need to think about why are you doing it for yourself aside from anything you want to provide the patient? Because I think sometimes we put those two things together and we start trying to advertise to the patient using reasons that we're doing this for ourselves. So I think if we can start to learn how to distinguish those things of why am I actually doing this? What do I want? And you said time freedom, you want to make more money. Lindsay, you mentioned having a different schedule. So what are other reasons that you all want to open your practice for yourself? So kind of your selfish reasons for wanting to open a business that have nothing to do with your patients, really.
I can talk a little bit about that. I've been traveling for 5 years, so it's a very long time to be moving every 3 months. So I'm ready to start setting up somewhere, and started looking at jobs full time, and then saw how much money people were making and how little time off you would get. I've been living this life of freedom where I take 4 to 5 months off of work every year. And I can't possibly go back to 2 weeks off a year. Definitely just cannot do that.
I love working right now. I'm working home health and I love the geriatric, like older adult population. And the idea of working somewhere where I can get people who really want to stay in the community and really want to be healthy and strong and like independent sounds wonderful. Because I think I heard Alex say this before in a different like podcast on ICE, where like you can only give so much to someone, they have to want it too. And so I really am looking forward to like working with some patients that I can be excited to get out of my car to go to work every day because people want to do the things that I want to do with them.
I'm gonna jump in after that because I also was doing travel until I took this permanent job, and I'm dying with the 2 weeks PTO thing. So my selfish reason is my plan is to go by next April to do travel assignments for part of the year and then spend my summer doing like a mobile kind of on-site treating through hikers, so I can like spend my summer because I did the PCT last summer. So my goal is to like have like an ebook and like consults and kind of help people while they're on trail, both before, during, and after. So if I do travel assignments part of the year, I can just have my summer to like treat the population I want to treat, but then also like have a fun summer.
I can also speak to a pretty selfish reason to why I want to open up my own clinic. I this Friday lost my job 2020. I moved states, and then after I got my license, I could not find a job. I had applied to so many places. So basically I couldn't get a job, so I'm making a job because I can't sit around anymore. I've taken so many online CEU courses, but I need to treat. I miss treating. So yeah, the opportunity has presented itself and I'm taking the jump.
Kind of going off of that a little bit. Last year I lost my job as well through COVID, and I had to come back. I'm from South Florida, so I had to come back from Chicago to South Florida, which I was not happy about that. I was loving Chicago, but now I took basically the only job offer that I got through COVID, and now I'm working at a physician-owned clinic, which the physicians are very strict about how I treat, what I do, making sure I do e-stim, ultrasound, all that, even though I'm not seeing the benefits from that. So I kind of want to get out of that whole, I guess, umbrella.
It's crazy how many of us lost jobs in COVID and it started this. I did too last year, lost my job. I was unemployed for like 7 months. But it's kind of cool though. Like we all talk about how much COVID sucks, but it's also been like kind of a jumping point, it sounds like, for a lot of us to be like, we're gonna do something about this.
It has been the worst and best thing to happen to me.
Yes, same. I was like, this is horrible. Like, what am I doing with my life? But at the same time, I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna be a PT anymore, so I'm gonna start teaching. And then like, never mind, I do want to be a PT again. So let me figure out what to do with this. Yeah, kind of crazy.
That's awesome. Yeah, a lot of people told us that they were working in, like, either they had been laid off or they were being asked to work in environments that they didn't feel safe. So like before a lot of the mask mandates were imposed, they were they were being asked not to wear masks, for example. And there were people who were like, no, I'm not doing this. So kind of interesting. Okay, anything else? Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I think for me, a big part of it is like the reward of like being able to see a patient get better almost. So like today, for example, I treated like 20 people and it was stupid. But the first whole part of the day, like just running around doing manuals and like not actually being able to progress exercises and anything that I think would actually like add some more value. And then my last person of the day, once everyone else left, was a power lifter, which is like super exciting for me. And it was one-on-one. And then like I actually like could see things getting better and being able to provide more value to them was actually like made it personally feel much more rewarding for me. So I think that's a huge part of it, is like being able to stand behind what I'm doing, when like right now, I just come home and I'm like, I don't know if I helped anyone today. I just stretched them a little bit and like ran to the next person. So I think that is one of the biggest personal reasons for me.
Okay, what about, David mentioned making money. Is anybody looking to make money? Yeah, okay, what does that mean? Stephanie's like, yes, please.
I'll rant on this quickly because I think it's programmed into us. We're all like caring and compassionate people. So like for people like that, money is viewed as like the root of all evil. I challenge you to find somebody who's poor as shit and ask if they would like some money and see if it's the root of all evil. You know, like it's the classic. It just makes you more of what you are. So, and I don't think any of us are really like, I don't know. I've been digging into this business and entrepreneurial stuff, and it's you have to, the mindset of what money is a big change that a lot of us have to make, and it's also the mindset of selling. I frankly never wanted to really go into sales because I don't really believe any product. But I do believe in myself, and I do believe in like my ability to listen to other people and have a positive effect. So like that's a big piece of it. And the funny thing is, and I think COVID's taught us that, is that I mean, I know my therapist, my psychologist that I've had to get in the last year for my mental health, having somebody to just listen and talk to and work through problems with, like, is super freaking valuable. So that getting back to the money, just we all like time, money, freedom. There's a certain number that if we hit, life's gonna get better. You know, it doesn't solve all our problems, but getting there is a good thing. So
I think the other thing with that too is that I've realized that so many people like either don't even have undergrad degrees or like have an undergrad degree and are making more than I'm making with a doctorate. And it is so frustrating. But the flip side of that too is like I have a really hard time thinking that people actually like want to pay me for like what I do. And so I think that like David was saying with sales, like that's definitely going to be a struggle for me. But it's still super frustrating to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm making so much less than you are in your like HVAC world, or like my plumber, I like pay him way more than I'm getting paid. So I feel like trying to like close that disparity a little bit. And like David was talking about debt too, like my student loans are crazy. Like how the heck am I ever going to pay this off making what I'm making right now? Like there's got to be something else to do.
Yeah. And I think it's, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the student debt thing is something that weighs on me because it's like for where I currently work right now, and it's like I have to run the reports and I see like what the clinic makes and then what I make, and so how much money they're making basically off me, and it kills me because I'm like, well, I would just like to have all of that. But in looking at starting a practice of any sort, there's money out before there's money in, and it's like it feels like squeezing juice out of a raisin. Just like I know I have this debt and it feels like a big leap. So that's kind of why I took this course, because I was like, $600 will either get me going or it will tell me not to waste any more money, and then I'll be good one way or another. But that, I don't know if anybody else struggles with that, but I have a hard time looking at my debt and thinking about shelling out any more money.
I get that, but at the same time, it's like it's already there, and it's gonna take, so long, and then you're just gonna add on to it with buying a house. Well, if you don't already own a house or whatever, buying a house next, the debt is always gonna be there. Like there's always going to be some form of debt until you're like 70. So why not just, I mean, don't go crazy with it, but why the hell not?
Fair.
I think for me, yeah, I've been practicing 12 and a half years now. And I agree. Like the last time I looked at my federal loans and when it was going to be paid off, it was something ridiculous. I want to say it was like 2044. And I'm like, my husband and I just laughed. So I guess I don't think so much about that. But what I do think about it as far as money goes is I do want to be able to work less and make more so that I can enjoy life more, so I can do more traveling and not have to worry like, oh my gosh, all my paycheck has to go to paying my damn student loans, you know, and just my bills. I want to be able to pay bills, but have that extra to do the things that I love.
And for me, it's also about making, so I'm gonna jump in and kind of like piggyback from what Morgan was saying, that she runs the report at the place where she works at. I'm the manager of a pretty successful clinic for a big corporation here in Miami. And they make a crazy amount of money and they squeeze every single ounce out of us. So we are definitely burnt out, myself and my staff. And I would like to like just invest that time and the effort in my own business so I don't plan to make the money they make, but be comfortable and have the flexibility and the time to spend with my family and just not have to be worried about reporting numbers and why we're not meeting these numbers and what are we gonna do next. So that's one of the things that I kind of want to get rid of.
And I think what Helen and Morgan said is like, you are bringing in all this money for your company, right? Like you're seeing all of these patients and you know that whether it's the insurance company or the patient, like all that money is still coming in the clinic. So I think sometimes like there's this mindset shift of like, we feel like we have to start selling and patients are now going to start paying for PT, but a lot of them already are. They're just paying for like worse PT at this bigger clinic because they're paying their high deductible or whatever it is. So like a lot of these patients are actually already paying to see you. You just don't realize it because you don't see their bills come in. So like Helen, some of these people you're already treating in this high volume clinic might be paying $150 for their session with you and you just don't know. You don't care. Like you're just like happily treating them like this is fine. I'm going to set my plan of care, whatever I think it should be. But you don't have to have that conversation with them. So really it's just this mindset shift of like, now I know that they're paying and that freaks me out because I'm actually getting that money, which is what we want in the first place, right? Like we want to actually get that money from treating the patient, but you haven't thought about it before because like you just don't deal with the finances for your clinic unless you are like Viviana or someone in that role where you're like, I know what this clinic is making and why am I not getting my fair cut of it?
I think in one of the things, it was either a podcast or one of the things that we read this past week, it was talking about how like sometimes even though it feels like you're charging patients more than what their copay is, a lot of times it's not this like hidden bill because of like the way that we're billing in the clinic, like they don't always know like what charges they're going to be responsible for. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a very valid point. My like flat rate for every session is maybe like more appealing, even though I'm like, this is terrifying. You know, they might be like, oh, this is great. Like I can like plan for this and budget for this and like know how to do all these things versus I'm like, well, I don't know, like maybe we're doing neuro re-ed today or like whatever it is. So yeah, I thought that was like a really good thing that somebody pointed out about that.
That's great. Okay, should we switch gears then, Kate?
I mean, it's all kind of the same question, I think, but we're talking about like, what are our selfish reasons for starting a practice? Like we want to make more money. We don't want to get burned out. We want to set our own schedule. But then we want to transition to like, what is in it for the patient? So like, we know why we're starting the clinic, but then why does our patient want to come to our clinic instead of that high volume clinic or wherever we are now? Because I think sometimes we try to use our own reasons for starting a practice to appeal to the patient, and that's not necessarily what they're looking for. And Ezra, I think you commented on this a little bit too, like with the one-on-one example. Can you speak to that a little bit? You say that again?
Yeah, I just minimized everything by accident. Sorry. So yeah, I think like what I'm noticing is with this, like if it's a more, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, so we're talking about the reasons that we're starting a practice and then what we're actually trying to sell to our patients, and how sometimes we try to use our own reasons for starting the practice as a reason that the patient should come in and see us. So we use the example of like, you're going to come in and get one-on-one care because that's what we want, right?
Right. So yeah, I think a lot of the thing I'm actually seeing is I think a lot of patients don't even always realize that they need that one-on-one or want that one-on-one. Like sometimes I think some of my patients seem totally fine just like going through the routine with an aide, but then on a day where I do have more time and I'm able to be one-on-one with them, they're like, wow, today was like really awesome. So that's part of my hesitation is like, I think people realize they get that awesome care once they get it, but I don't always know that they expect it going in, which I've been kind of struggling with that because I'm like, okay, so how am I going to, if I'm picturing some of these patients who are coming into the clinic, like I can think of a couple that are upset by how busy it is, but there's a lot that like really don't care, and I don't know if I'll be able to get that group. And then I'm also thinking, okay, maybe that's not my target audience, and I need those like higher level, maybe a more athletic population that I'm looking for that needs more of that like attention for like their bigger lifts and stuff like that. So I don't know. I've been struggling with that a lot.
Right. That's good. But when you break that down like that, what those more high level athletes want, do they want one-on-one care from you, or do they want time to work on their lifts with somebody who understands their lifts?
Right. I think it's more the latter, where like they don't care if the aide is working with them for like the first half of it, but as long as they have that like last 15 minutes of good attention, I think then they're fine. But like the way my clinic is currently structured, it's like, okay, if I have 15 minutes with them, like my boss expects me to be doing manuals with them for that time or something. Like, so I think that's a big problem with it too. But yeah, so I think I think you talked about this in your podcast where it's like, we're not marketing then the one-on-one, it's like we're marketing, okay, I know a lot about lifting and maybe you should see me rather than my current boss who knows nothing about lifting. So that stuck out to me, I think, the most out of everything we listened to. I really like that because I was thinking like, how am I going to just mark this one-on-one thing that people might not care about?
Mm-hmm. And I think it depends where you are too. Like in the Chicago area, it's like there's so many high volume clinics that I don't think people even realize that that is like that's not how it should be. Like they just don't even consider that they're looking for one-on-one or that they're looking for something different because they just hear PT and they're like, well, my doctor sent me to this high volume clinic. Like they don't even know that that's a thing on their radar that they should be looking for with their physical therapy because they're so used to that other model. Whereas it's like in Seattle, there's so many more like one-on-one PT for an hour clinics where it's like you definitely can't distinguish yourself that way because there's so many other insurance-based clinics that are like that. So you need to start looking for another option. So it's like it is part of the picture, right? Like we all want to offer one-on-one PT. We just assume that that is our new standard. But when we're thinking about like I want that for myself and that's how I want to treat, is that going to be the number one priority for the patient? Like probably not. Maybe if that is their biggest frustration with their high volume clinic, it is. But I feel like that's not necessarily their issue, right? Like they might not even know what their issue was with that PT. It might just be this general, like, I didn't get better, or like I felt like they didn't understand my sport, or I went back to CrossFit and I got injured again right away. So I think they're not, it's like that one-on-one is still important, but I think we see it advertised so much with people starting an out-of-network practice of like, first of all, this is what sets me apart from an insurance-based clinic, which isn't always true. There are plenty of insurance-based clinics that are one-on-one for an hour, but the patient might not be drawn to that. Like they might need something more. So I want to also talk a little bit more about the insurance constraints too for people going into cash practice, because I think sometimes that is also like we have our own insurance constraints as PTs and the things that we're frustrated with, but those aren't necessarily things that the patient cares about or is frustrated. So maybe to start out, like what are some of the insurance frustrations you have purely from like, again, like your selfish side of it of like, I don't want to deal with this thing with insurance because it bothers me, or like it makes me treat in this clinic model that I don't like. So what are some of those things about insurance that you're frustrated with?
I can answer that
Authorization.
right now. Oh, sorry. Was that Steph?
Go ahead.
You can finish. Well, so because dry needling as of last year has its own code. So I do dry needling, but now we're having to charge a cash-based code on top of like a copay or on top of a co-insurance. And so it's like this additional like charge, and that's a frustrating thing because most insurances aren't covering it. And so I find that frustrating, along with all of like, so our cash-based patients, which I actually see quite a few cash-based patients at my current clinic, you know, that's just, we lump it into their, you know, visit charge. And so, you know, I'm not able to, I don't always use it as much as I did previously before there was a cash-based dry needling additional charge, along with all of the pre-authorization and documentation and crap that goes along with it. But that's been one of my more recent frustrations with insurance.
Mine would be the paperwork for me, just the extra paperwork having to, I don't like paperwork. I'm very slow with it. And so having less of that would be fantastic.
So I'm going to go like a layer above. Like, what is the point of insurance? The point of insurance is a bunch of people pooling money together. So in the case of something really bad happening, you can pay for an expensive surgery or to get your car paid for, or like we're putting the money into a pot so that when something really bad happens to us, that's not really affordable to the average person, like we can pay for it. Is our service like a good quality service with us? Could we not figure out ways like to make it affordable to people? Like I would argue that PT, you know, most people, like we've already discussed, like people are paying high deductibles, or they have high deductibles, so they're already paying out of HSAs and things like that. And going back to like the one-on-one care, like is that the gold standard? I would say for some people it might be, but for other people they like, honestly, in the case of like CrossFit, there's tons of people getting very fit and healthy in group settings. So like part of our challenge is like, if you want to use insurance, great, but like figure out ways to make it either get it to be like you're figuring out a product and a service that people really want and they're willing to pay whatever they want to, or that whatever you charge because you can solve their problem. Or if there are not those people, not everyone is like that, then figure out a service that can provide it in a group setting, which is already kind of, you know, CrossFit already did that. Like personal training is expensive. All right, bring 6 of your buddies and we'll figure out how to do this and you all pay a little bit less. Like, I just think part of our game is to tear down our traditional freaking healthcare insurance system. And that's going back to like, why is it that expensive? Well, because hospitals are expensive, staff's expensive, all these things that are not us are expensive. So sorry to like totally break away from like the insurance question. And I think insurance is it can be useful. And I think, Kate, you're smart for having the hybrid practice because it works for you. But like, I just think the bigger question is like, how do you make these things valuable to people and how do you solve their problems? And if like you guys are solving a problem for me by like starting a fire under my ass to like get going, so I'm paying you for it, you know? So that's like the cool thing in my opinion.
Well, and I think that is like, it's the perfect example though of like what's in it for us, right? Like we're trying to disrupt the healthcare system. We're trying to get rid of this insurance model. We don't agree with it. Like we believe that insurance should be used for these catastrophic things and that it should be more wellness based. So like that is our principle and that's our like foundational belief of what we're trying to do to disrupt the industry. But as it stands right now, like let's say I have a patient who has a Blue Cross policy and Blue Cross is going to pay me $150 for that visit. They have no deductible. They have no copayment, no co-insurance. They've already paid for that insurance policy. Blue Cross has no pre-authorization for that policy for me. And like, there aren't that many issues, right? So like, if I'm trying to sell my cash practice to that person who's offered that like in-network option to go one-on-one, see me through their Blue Cross plan, like, I can't really argue that insurance is evil because they're going to see an aide for the whole session and I'm not going to get reimbursed and they're going to have to pay a lot out of pocket, right? So like, I think on principle, we can all agree that the insurance model isn't ideal and that's like what we want to break away from. But it's like, how do we reconcile that with the current reality that some good insurance plans do still exist for people? And they're going to want to use that to pay for PT in certain situations. So like that's where that difference between like, here's my issue with insurance and why I think that my practice model is the future and the way that we need to be going. But like my patient doesn't care about that. So like all of these arguments that I'm using of like insurance is bad, like they still want to use their insurance. So like we need to find something different that's not just an argument about why their insurance plan is bad. That's like, here's why you should still see me, even though I'm going to be more expensive. And that's where it gets really tricky. Because you are going to be like, sometimes I think people are using this argument of like, it's going to still be expensive for you to go through insurance. It's going to be the same cost. Like you might save money to go out of network. And that might happen, but it's going to be really rare in reality. So like it's good for us to be out of network and to be cash based, but like how do we make the patient see that value so they could choose a cheaper option with their insurance, but they want to see you instead?
And I think, David, people like your passion around that, and your patients probably, your particular following is going to appreciate that, but it's too often used in marketing, in our opinion, as like, come see us, we're one-on-one for an hour with a DPT. Well, so is Kate, and she takes insurance, she takes your plan. So
I'm not saying like that's going to be my marketing.
Oh, no.
Plan, honestly, like one-on-one for an hour, I don't think is I think you guys are hitting on the head. I think like that if that's what you think you're going to sell people on, nobody's going to give a shit.
Right.
Like, what they care about is that you solve their problems. That's
right.
Really all.
And individual patients, for the most part, they don't feel the impact necessarily of our crappy insurance or healthcare system. And so disrupting it, while that's our, maybe that's what we want to do, doesn't matter to them because they just want to work on their shoulder and get back into the gym. And maybe over time that changes, but it's good for us to have like a networking group where we can say like, oh, this really sucks. Like I'm so frustrated with this, and get it out of our system and get on our soapbox for a minute and make a plan as a community of PTs. Like, how are we going to do this down the road? But that's not how you're going to actually get customers to pay your light bill for your clinic. So what else? I know, Stephanie, you brought up authorization. That's what you were saying that frustrates you with insurance.
Yeah, back when I worked for like a high volume clinic, we took every insurance out there. And, some insurances, we particularly had an issue. I was in New Jersey at the time, and the teachers union switched over to Aetna, and their authorization process started to become absolutely ridiculous. So after their first visit, you would have to call and give a random human on a phone like a bunch of qualifiers basically, and they would just check boxes. They had no clue what anything was. They would ask you a question, give you multiple choice answer, and you basically check the box, and they'd be like, okay, because of your answers, they get 3 more visits, and then you have to call us again. And so it was, you treat for 2 visits and you call back. And then, I had a patient who was post-surgical who got 11 visits before their insurance was like, no more, they're done. They were in for 3 days a week post-surgical. And they're like, nope, 11 visits, that's too much. They're done. We can't do this anymore. And so then that patient had to go to cash-based because their insurance refused to pay. And this person was like 3 weeks out of surgery or something. So they're not going to be like, oh no, I'm just going to go off on my own. I've got this, like, we're cool. So that was one of my biggest issues, like just the limitation of visits due to surgery. And then after that, the patient would have to go to cash-based.
That was one of my biggest issues too. Sorry, Helen, go ahead.
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, when I started my practice, that was one of my big issues for my patients too, because the plans in my area required a lot of pre-auth. So it just wasn't working for my patient population.
I feel like the big issue that I have is that, like, one, I feel like they're trying to tell me how to treat. And like, I don't like that. I'm like, no, but I'm the one that went to school. Like, I don't want you to I don't want you to dictate like how I'm treating or like how many visits they have. And I feel like there's like a major discrepancy, like Steph was saying, like some people get like 6 visits and then some people it's like 100. And you're like, wait, what? And so then it feels like I'm giving different levels of quality care depending on their insurance. And like that feels wrong on like some base level, that like I'm treating you differently because of your insurance. Or like my clinic will like triple buck if you have a commercial insurance, but only double buck if there's a Medicare, or like only single if it's Medicare. And I just don't agree with that on like some base level where like, I don't know, I just don't feel like that should be like the dictator of how we provide care. And like Steph's point about post-surgical, if I have 2 high school athletes that both tore their ACL and one has 6 visits and one has 50, like, am I then setting up one of the athletes to like be more successful later on down the road purely because of their insurance, versus the other one's probably going to be back in with another torn ACL relatively soon, if they can afford to pay for it. And I don't like that.
With that kind of situation, I had a patient come in once every like 10 days because I was like, we need to milk these visits. So early on, when it was a lot of home mobility stuff, I'm like, you need to be so diligent with this or else, that's it. And due to their home financial situation, they would not be able to go cash-based once their visits were up. So once we exhausted those, how many visits that person got, that was it. That's it. That's all. So we had to space everything out. And, if that person was triple booked at the on the 12th hour of my 12-hour day, you know, are you getting the most quality care after I've been on my feet for 11 hours running around like a crazy person treating 23 patients in a day? No, you're not getting the most quality care at that time. Like, I'm sorry.
And I think to both of your points too, though, like when you think about having a cash clinic, like you're frustrated at them being restricted in their visits, but they're still going to want to maximize their visits, right? Like they're gonna have to transition to cash based at some point. But if your clinic is only cash based, then they're missing out on those 6 visits that they do get or 8 visits that they do get. So that's where it becomes important of like just to recognize that those patients are on a restricted plan, but they still are going to want those visits. Like if they can get them, they're going to want those 6 or 10 or 12 or whatever it is. So how do you still work with those patients, right? Like, do you take an insurance contract and then when it runs out, you actually have a good transitional program to start seeing those people cash based? Or do you just network really well with those in-network clinics? So when they hit that 6th visit, 10th visit, and they don't have a good transition program where they're still going to have aids and everything else, and people don't want to pay cash for that, then that patient comes in to see you. So you're not getting them immediately post-op because you do want them to be able to use those visits, right? Like if that's your reason that you're frustrated is that they don't get enough visits, you're still going to want them to max out what they can get, right? But you're just picking them up now a little bit later in the process.
I think to that point too, and like, I know that we're like, you know, kind of hating on one-on-one model right now, but I feel like 6 visits in my current setting versus 6 visits if I was on my own look very, very different. Like, I think that a lot of times I would be able to only need maybe 6 visits with somebody if I could actually like focus on just them and not be like running around like crazy. And maybe like this is not the post-surgical patient, right? Where like, or this like super complex chronic pain, like wild something, but like you're like loosely injured CrossFit athlete, you know, that like, because I just don't have the time or the capacity to like spend a bunch of time with them, I feel like the 6 visits in the 2 settings look super different. And so I think like one of the things that like I've been thinking about with going this direction is like kind of like maximizing the potential of the visits, where like if I can give you like a bunch of things to work on and spend like really good focused time with you, even just for like 30 minutes, and then like send you off on your own for like a week or 2 and then report back, like I feel like that could be better for them and me versus like twice a week for 6 weeks for like the rest, or you know, for forever until we can actually like have the time to like sort through your problems.
Well, I think that's like when you when Steph was mentioning like 3 times a week, what I work in kind of a hybrid model right now where probably like 20% of our patients are cash pay, but like they're not going to pay cash pay for 3 times a week, or it's going to be very few and far between. So they're going to expect to get a lot more out of your one visit a week or every 10 days or every, you know, but you're exactly right, Helen. Usually it's a much more efficient visit. And you can get a lot more done in 6 visits one-on-one typically. And the beauty of cash pay, well, there's a lot of beauties of it, but some of it is they tend to be a little bit more outside the clinic because they know that they need to use their own time more efficiently, both in and outside the clinic, I think. But I think their expectations increase significantly in terms of what they get out of a session and how frequently you have to see them, for sure.
Kate, when you see a patient that's Blue Cross Blue Shield, like it's one-on-one. I mean, obviously.
Yeah, everything's the same. Yeah.
But like anytime I've been in a clinic where even if they have good insurance, like, are you documenting while you're treating them?
No.
you're just paying 100% attention to them. aren't you?
100% cash pay, Blue Cross. I have 10 notes to do right now that I haven't done because I don't do anything in the clinic. Yeah.
But I mean, the feel of that interaction is a completely different feeling than me running around, even me trying to document, because I've my Blue Cross Blue Shield, you might be my good insurance patient, and I've got 3 over here that are United Health. I mean, and this is in a high volume clinic, but like the feel of me being distracted by 6 things versus me giving you 100% of my attention is a very different feeling and a very different energy.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
And I think that's why, like, I want to emphasize that the insurance contract is one thing and your clinic's management is another thing.
Yeah.
Because no insurance contract forces anyone to see 3 patients in an hour. Like, they're just telling you what they're going to pay. So it's the management that decides, like, that's not an acceptable amount, so we're going to cram 3 people into that hour or 4 people into that hour. So it's totally dependent on your management of, like, it's not an insurance based or cash based. It's like, what is your clinic's decision and how are they running it? And even like, I think Alan at Health HQ, like, he does accept a lot more insurance contracts. I only do one because it reimburses well, but he will like accept one that doesn't reimburse well and another one that does, but treat everyone the same way because he's like, there's going to be some middle ground. Like, that's too complicated for me. I'm like, I just want insurance contracts that actually pay well, because then I can treat everyone exactly the same. But it is very much like a management decision where they're like, we're not getting reimbursed enough, so this is how we're going to run our clinic. And that's why you end up seeing like a Medicare patient gets an hour, but a Blue Cross patient gets 15 minutes because of the way things are reimbursed. But that's not the insurance company saying that, that's your clinic management saying that. So when you run the clinic, you can make those decisions.
Did you figure that out with like visits and stuff too? Like, I don't know, with like Blue Cross, for example, like, do you feel like they are good about like with the pre-authorization stuff and limiting your number of visits? And like, will you talk a little bit about like how you figured that out? I feel like I'm like drowning in the world of insurance because I just like, it's so variable. It changes state to state, insurance to insurance. And then like, even to people that have the same insurance, it's totally different. And so I feel like I like don't know how to figure that out, because the thing in my head, I'm like, boo, insurance. But like, you're exactly right that it's not necessarily insurance that's bad. You know, it's like more your style. So like, how do you even go about figuring that out?
Yeah, for me, it was a lot of trial and error, but it's also knowing that like everyone's insurance plan is going to be different within that same company. You just need to know what their general reimbursement rate is. So like, people are going to have a high deductible or not. They're going to have a high co-insurance or not. They're going to have a visit restriction, but like, that's not, I think it's just remembering that that's not your problem. Like, you can be contracted with that insurance company and you can accept that rate. But when it comes to my individual patients, like, they're responsible for their own payment and knowing what their plan is and knowing what they're going to owe and then deciding if they can afford that. So I think like, if you get too wrapped up in like, what is this patient going to owe? Is that going to be too expensive for them? Like, I think so many times we start worrying about our patients' finances like more than they do. Where like, your only responsibility is like, what is this insurance company going to pay me per visit? Because that doesn't have anything to do with the patient. Like, that insurance company has contracted at that rate. The question is just, does the insurance company pay it 100%, or are they passing that on to the patient? And that's like an individual plan issue. So all you need to worry about is like that one big policy, like, what does Blue Cross pay in my area? Or what does United Healthcare pay in my area? Like, you don't need to worry about all those logistics of like a pre-authorization for one person's plan or visit restrictions or anything like that.
And this might be really detailed, but they would pay differently based on like codes, right? Like an eval code versus like manual therapy versus Therax.
Yep.
Okay, so does that influence like how you bill then?
Yeah, I mean, it does some. Like, if you treat everyone one-on-one for an hour, then you kind of figure out with your coding what's going to get reimbursed.
Okay.
So we now have a standard of like, we want to bill 5 codes or like 5 units for the hour. And we know that that's going to get reimbursed at a certain rate. So it's, some of it is kind of trial and error of like, I'm going to submit this code and they didn't reimburse that. Like, I'm not ever submitting that again to Blue Cross. And I'm sure there are like much more technical ways of doing it, and you could be on the phone with them for a long time, but that's been my process of like, we're just going to try this and see what they reimburse for one visit and then see what happens. But yeah, it's a process, but it's not as overwhelming as it seems.
Yeah, and start by just asking people in your area who maybe do have these contracts, which ones are paying well. Right? Because like, unfortunately, what's working for Kate in Chicago, that's the insurance company that causes me all this grief with pre-auth. So I'm not ever going to be in network with Blue Cross. So it is real, like you said, it's different state to state for sure. And we'll get into the weeds on some of that in later weeks. But good discussion. So the takeaway is we all have our reasons. We all have our personal reasons for wanting to be an entrepreneur, and then our personal reasons for like what we don't like about what's happening where we're working now, right? Or where we have worked. But then we need to start thinking about what is actually going to bring our customers our way, right? What's going to actually bring clients to see you and want to pay money, right? That's outside of our own reasons. Cool. All right, good. Any last minute thoughts? You guys are doing good. So we're going to keep challenging these paradigms, right? And we're going to ask you to really dig deep here. Okay. We will send out your week 2 stuff in the morning. In the meantime, those of you who haven't gotten to it yet, get on your homework and we'll see you guys next week. All right. Thank you for joining. That was good.